The World Series is set. There's a new number one in college football, and we'll tell you why soccer is a joke of a game compared to American football, and maybe even lead you to the conclusion that the game should just outright be abolished. Welcome to another edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest. It's Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday. We certainly had a lot of sensational developments in the world of sport. And if you are betting on these games, which I would imagine all of you are if you're tuned into this program, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, every matchup breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games while they're taking place. What do I mean? We're only down 3. It's not over till it's over. Yogi Berra said that. Whatever it is, I mean, the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, NBA, to political props, which are very hot right now. Well, when the game's over, did I sound like Donald Trump when I said that? Very hot right now. Very hot right now. He repeats everything. He's like Johnny 2 times. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino. You can get in on a game of blackjack. You can play poker. You can unwind with over 150 slot games that they make available to you. Head to the website today to get on all the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online. The game starts here. All right, often talked about the network executives and what their preferred matchup would be. Couldn't have asked for much more drama or excitement out of the Cleveland Yankees series. So with that sensational exchange on Friday night, you get the back-to-back home runs. Stanton knocks one out of the park. Soto's hitting bombs. And then Yankees take the lead, only to have the game tied up with 2 away in the 9th inning. Eventually, Cleveland wins that one game of the series that they were able to triumph in. And they win that with a home run, a 2-run shot. So that was great. A lot of drama with Soto a couple of nights ago on Saturday, hitting a 3-run homer, and that put the Yankees into the World Series. Wow. I mean, talk about rising to the occasion in your free agent year. Turned down, about $300 million from the Washington Nationals, where they still love the guy. They'd love to have him back a few years ago, and then went to the Padres, of course, had success there. And now with the New York Yankees, part of the reason, a large part of the reason why they're in the position they're in. Going against the Dodgers in the World Series, fairly tough to handicap. Yankees have this dynamic lineup where more than 2 guys are producing for the first time all season. That happened to click in at just the right moment here as they're trying to win another world championship. And the Dodgers, this will be the 12th time the 2 franchises have met. And as I say, the network executives probably very happy that this was the matchup as opposed to what a lot of New Yorkers and people here in South Florida, expatriates of New York, would say, yeah, I'm rooting for a Subway Series. The people that are thinking, is this going to be a national draw, are probably along the lines of, stick that Subway Series right up your ass. We want no part of it. So worked out well. I mean, you're going to have interest all across the country, and 2 glamour franchises are going to go at it in the World Series. So be interesting. Dodgers starting pitching all fucked up. And so they've been going with these bullpen lineups where you're getting 2/3 of an inning out of this guy. I think Charlie Huff even came back to pitch a couple of innings the other night while Tommy Lasorda was saying, yeah, go ahead. Throw him the fastball, Charlie. Fabled franchises going at it. Very contentious. The contribution coming from up and down the lineup on both teams in terms of offensive firepower. Yankees, the dumbest base running team in the history of the league. We saw a Dodger player make Hernandez make a bonehead play, standing at home plate, staring at what you thought was a home run, turning a double into a single, and maybe causing the route to taking a big inning and turning into a disaster. So interesting series, great matchup. Should be a lot of fun to watch. We'll have some people sharing their opinions on that as we get through the week. A lot of fun, though. You can hear Vin Scully from the grave saying, pull up a chair and stay a while. So it should be a lot of fun. Our friend Dylan's ticket still very much alive. And wow. And to recap, if you're just tuning in for the first time, we got a guy that put the UConn Huskies in the national championship NCAA title. Parlayed that with a couple of other components. This is the 4th element of the series where he cashes from a $100 wager for $90,000 after hitting with the Celtics also to win the NBA championship. And then the longest shot in the sequence was the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup. They had kind of waffled towards the end of the regular season. Odds went up 8.5 to 1. That's what's made the parlay. And if the Dodgers come home in the fourth leg of this, picks up $90,000 for a $100 ticket. Very nice if you can put it together. And then keeps himself alive for a $500,000 score if the Ravens go on, and they're in action tonight, and win the Super Bowl championship. Not easy to come up with, but none of the teams were overwhelmingly far-fetched. So this looms as one of the great wagers of all time. If he gets the Dodgers home, and of course the Shakespearean question comes to mind immediately: to hedge or not to hedge. I don't know what you guys would do, but I'm hedging off 10 dimes at the very least there, and figuring I'm either going to make 80 or 10, because you deserve it to get to this point where you're one of two teams left for the possibility of winning the championship. All right, a new number one in college football. Our guys were pretty much on the money. We had some division about the Nebraska-Indiana game. One of our handicappers joins us every Tuesday. Scotty M was all over Indiana. He says, stick with these guys. They're really good. Many non-believers out there thought that Nebraska would be their first real test and they would be exposed as the frauds that they are. So what do? They put up like a 50 spot and they run away and hide. So we kind of had a split decision loss on that one. Two of our guys went with Nebraska, and Indiana was a choice of Scotty M. Came out on top in that one. Many of our handicappers throughout the week were all over Georgia getting 5 points, and they win the game outright, convincing fashion. Dominating performance against the Texas Longhorns, and that's caused a little bit of a juxtaposition in college football with Oregon now sitting there. And could you say this about every team, it seems like? What happened to scheduling in college football? It seems like every conversation is, well, they haven't played anybody yet, and they're not going to be tested until the championship game, which was true of our Miami Hurricanes, and they were prevailing and a wild, electrifying game, back and forth all the way. We always talk about the Cristobal factor with the Hurricane football team, now ranked number 6. They beat Louisville. This was the only test. Prior to that, the only thing that they'd been tested by was like the FAMU band I think they had on the schedule to open the season. And those guys are tough, man. Those fat tuba players that used to run the gauntlet before they banned it, and they would have them go through the bus, and they got paddles and spiked and steel balls and all kinds of shit. I don't think Russell Crowe faced more adversarial conditions than these tuba players and the guys in the FAMU band. Very famous band, but this was a tradition that you would have to think was a little bit from beyond the Stone Age and had to go. I mean, not even the chancellor at Animal House would have looked the other way on this one. That's for sure. But nonetheless, we saw the Hurricanes challenged again by Louisville. They win by a touchdown, covered the point spread by 1.5. I think it went off 5.5. And there's a commercial. I'm not sure if it's a national spot or it's just running here in the state of Florida, where they got some old bag and she's slumped over a pile of bills. And she's saying, oh, these bills, I don't know how I'm going to pay them. And symbolically, below her apartment there where she is, you have two guys that are mining gold, and they're talking about how this insurance company will buy back your life insurance policy. And they're going back and forth, and one guy says, even a term policy? And the first guy answers back, yeah, even a term policy. And then he screams at the top of his lungs, even a term policy. I don't know if that's a familiar spot to you, but I keep thinking that when we talk about the Cristobal factor, which is Mario Cristobal, maybe, I mean, the Hurricanes have had this situation before with Butch Davis, who was a great recruiter, program builder, and not the most scientific of game day coaches. And sure enough, the same is very much true of Mario Cristobal. He's made some bozoic decisions, bonehead decisions that made you think, wow, how does this guy have a job on the sidelines? So you can see the guy screaming, even the Cristobal couldn't fuck up having a quarterback like Cam Ward guiding his offense and bailing him out of the fact that his defense is not very proficient, because they keep giving up points and drives and putting teams in a position that should have no business competing with the Hurricanes' offensive firepower, and putting them in positions to win ball games. And it happened again in this Louisville game. And you ask yourself, are they legitimate contenders? They're all crying, the Hurricane fans, that they never move up in the rankings and currently sit at number 6. And there are question marks about all of the teams that are ahead of them. But nonetheless, the biggest question mark always remains the Cristobal factor. All right, we had a principle in the NFL that worked, and it worked out very well for us on Bury Your Bookie, as the preliminary perusal theory came into play. And that is, you just take a quick glance at the odds for the upcoming week. I don't know, kind of like looking over the racing form real quick and you're going, yeah, the three looks good. You're looking at a couple of different factors that you often determine to pick your losers. And you come up with something just right off the top. So the two lines that seem to have the biggest discrepancies for me last week were that Denver game against New Orleans, where the Saints had nobody, and the line's only 2.5 in favor of Denver, even though they're on the road. All of these home dogs have been going up in smoke. And so New Orleans, with what was like a wing T offense that they were running, was not going to do shit against the Denver Broncos in that game. So we win that game. We talked about that on Friday's edition of Bury Your Bookie. And then the Jacksonville, being in London, sitting there sucking down a warm Guinness Stout for a week after losing a game in disgrace the week prior. And they don't have to travel overseas, and they're going against a New England Patriot team that, as we've said, immediately the line should accord the Patriots 10 points, and then you work your way up or down from there. But right away, they need a 10 spot thrown out, just like a splatter of paint. Give me 10 points on the Patriots, and I'll figure out which direction that line should go in. 6 and a hook didn't seem like near enough. Now you get down 10-0 in that game, and there was reason for panic. But it turned out that Jacksonville then pounded the living daylights, like the clubbing of seals. Still, there were dicey moments, which is the amazing thing about betting and gets to our point about soccer being a joke of a game compared to American football. But we do end up prevailing in that game with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They prevailed by 16 points. And so our preliminary perusal theory was very effective for us as we hit both games with relative ease. All right, many things to get to. And think about this. Even we're sort of obligated here with the other stuff that we do at Bury Your Bookie to pay a little bit of attention. And it's also the game that's broadcast and telecast into our market, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins have been dreadful for the last several weeks. The Tua concussion, he's coming back from that maybe as soon as next week? Can't get there soon enough for anybody that's back in the Dolphins this year. Like we suggested, I mean, I feel like an idiot. Talk about having an omelet on your face, that they would win the AFC East. And now they've been exposed as not having any kind of foresight into what they needed at backup quarterback. I don't know that the Andy Dalton thing, which was being criticized, is of any great significance because he's been getting buried with the Carolina Panthers, as is everybody. That's another team. Throw 20 points up right away. I mean, they're just absolutely horrible. Joe Flacco, would you have been inclined to say, hey, give me Joe Flacco? I feel like I'm going to be very confident. The 47-year-old Joe Flacco. Now, he was effective in his backup role, but still, I mean, I can't blame the Dolphins for not having Joe Flacco as their backup quarterback. But when you start thinking, my God, I mean, how could you be this bad at this position? And then on top of that, throw in a coach who literally looks like he just was diagnosed with a terminal illness when he was on the sidelines there. Just absolutely startled. You have really just an ugly situation going on there, and you're being forced to watch this game and saying to yourself, why am I doing this? There's no entertainment factor here whatsoever. But even with that being said, as dreadful of a ball game as it was, 16-10 was the final. The Miami Dolphins still have the ball with a minute 55 to go. A couple of blunders in game and clock management by the head coach has cost him a timeout. That was eventually, I don't know if it was crucial, but it certainly couldn't have hurt him to have that timeout where they have a minute 55 to go in a ball game, have to march pretty much 70 yards, and a field goal won't do it. But drama everywhere. Strategic blunders that were done previously came into play. You have a defined moment there where you have to figure out, can I use the middle of the field? Can I get up there in time to spike it? What are you going to do defensively? Are you going to allow them to make a couple of catches underneath and maybe get to the point like they did where they're going for a touchdown and a possible game winner in a game that Indianapolis dominated in spite of Anthony Richardson looking like Mitch Williams throwing a football early in the game. Still, this game boiled down to the absolute last moments in terms of the outcome of the point spread and determining who was going to win the game and advance in the standings. And That was true of a few other games, as it is almost every week when it comes to the points in the National Football League. End game drama is sensational, and you have to consider hundreds of different components there, coaching decisions, and do you have time to do this? Can you get out of bounds? All of this stuff comes into play. Do you give them a couple of yards here and there? Mistakes, just all kinds of things happen. Now, in a soccer game, you don't even know when it fucking ends. Well, what the hell is that? You come to the end of the game, and everybody's looking around going,
Is it over?
I don't know how people can compare it. I mean, the end game drama of any American football game and soccer, I mean, when you look at how meaningless it is at the end of the game, and people, they're like, well, I don't know, how much time did they put on the clock? They don't even tell you. Eventually, like the ref looks at his watch and goes, fuck, I got a plane to catch, and he's out the door. So, I mean, how could you consider? Is there any end game strategy? Is there anything that's being done? No, nothing. Balls just going back and forth, back and forth. People are in the fat kids up there in the back row playing a vuvuzela, like a ship is sinking. It's crazy. And to further my point about how soccer should be abolished, especially by comparison to the drama that takes place at the end of virtually every American football game. Here you have, I mean, Messi is now in the MLS, Major League Soccer. This is a 40-year-old broken down guy who's been injured half the season. Brilliant player. Not taking anything away from his legacy as a soccer player. You watch the guy play, even if you hate the sport, even if you think, like I do, that it was a sport that was developed by a mutant society that just didn't have any hands or arms. And they're all running around. They're thinking, what can we play? Well, let's play a game where you kick the ball, where the goal is the size of the Grand Canyon, and still nobody can fucking score. It's unbelievable. Except Messi in the MLS, which, you know how when you'd see maybe Roger Clemens goes down to Double-A for a quick rehab assignment, he's going to pitch 3 innings in Twin Falls or something. And, he goes down to Double-A, and you're expecting him to strike out all 9 guys. He does, right? Yeah, look at that. Clemens is back. He's got 9 Ks there. He only faced 9 batters in the ball game, and looks like his next start's going to be right up here with the big club. This is what's happening with Messi, and they must have instituted some kind of internal rule. There should be an investigation into the MLS because if you look at, I mean, he scores a hat trick the other night, like he was, Maurice Richard or something. Hat trick. Gets 3 goals in a game. There's nobody within a 30-foot radius of this guy. Is there a rule instituted where, hey, listen, this is the only meal ticket we have. We're probably facing extinction, much like the WNBA was before they got Caitlin Clark in the league. And, they just let the guy score. There's nobody defending him, nothing. It's such bullshit. And it proves that, I mean, if this guy can do this in this league, what a Fugazi league it was to begin with, that it was minor league stuff at best. And that's the whole thing about the sport, soccer. I couldn't help but think that with the drama at the ending of virtually every NFL game, and people are sending in tons of cash betting soccer, for what? I know you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but it was just an observation yesterday after watching a very, very, you have to understand, that was as brutal a game as you could watch, the Dolphins and the Indianapolis Colts. They got Tyreek Hill, they don't even throw the ball to him. They got Jalen Wild. They don't even throw the ball to him. They get their first pass targets in the 4th quarter of the game. And you're thinking, wow, either Indy's defense should be up there and mentioned with the Doomsday defense, or the Miami Dolphins have like $600 million invested in 3 offensive players and a coach, and they're rendered worthless already. Incredible. And even that game, that Drek, had some drama in it, which was phenomenal. Another thing, too, the WNBA championship decided in kind of bogus fashion, huh? Holy Adelaide Bird. Unbelievable. What was this? What kind of call was this? Where you put Brianna Stewart on the foul line. I happened to tune in for a few minutes. I didn't see the end of the game when it happened, when it transpired live. If you call this shit in the park and you said, I got it, in the park on that very same play where Brianna Stewart goes to the free throw line to sink whatever game tying free throw, send the game into overtime, and ultimately the Minnesota Lynx end up taking one on the chin there, and they go for like 0 for overtime, and that's going to relate to my point about the segment of the game that I saw where people are going crazy about the popularity of the league. And it's great. I'm all for it. I'm all for women advancing and getting the recognition they deserve for going out there and being ballers. I don't know. Would you want to face any of these ladies if they came out to the park there and said, hey, can I run with you? And it was like Ionescu or Brianna Stewart or any of these other players in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark would be great as a pickup basketball full court player. No? Coming across the midcourt stripe and you're saying, what the fuck are you doing? Boom, swish. Another one. Nothing but net. So I'm all for the advancement in that. And yet, wow. I mean, to make that call and decide a championship, that was even LeBron James, who does he always get calls? He doesn't get the same kind of treatment that Michael Jordan did, LeBron James. Every now and then the refs will, as much as he fetches and cries about it, every now and then he does get jobbed. Is that something I'm going to get ostracized for here on social media? Hey, he says that LeBron James is getting robbed on calls. No, but if you're objective about it, there are times that he might have a legitimate beef. It's demonstrative and all of a sudden he's doing all kinds of gyrations, and you're thinking, okay, he's going to get the next 7 calls anyway. So what is he crying about? But this was a bullshit call. If you call in a park, you're not getting out of the park that night. If you're calling us in just any pickup game around the country, I don't care where you are. You could be in some place in Indiana in a cornfield playing with Larry Bird's grandson, or you could be on the streets of New York there, or maybe at the Rucker Park. You make that call, you are fucked. You will never play another basketball game again. And so to have that decide the WNBA championship, a little weak. Now, as to the portion of the game I saw, and I'm trying to buy into this. I really am. People are betting on this stuff now. And are they having success? Not sure. But I tuned into a portion of the game. I think the score was like 47-45 at the time, favor of the Lynx. And I watch about 3 minutes of the game, turn away from football, which naturally there's much more of an obsession with and interest in. And you got bets going on all over the place. And I'm saying, let me watch a little of this. And it was a brick fest, one brick after another. And to the point where if you're shooting a ball out of the corner, people, I mean, everybody's, taking a couple of corner shots and fantasize about hitting a game winner there at the buzzer. And I go back before that was even a 3-point shot. There was no 3-point line. How old are you? I know it seems ancient that there was no 3-point stripe out there. But anyway, out of the corner was, a favored shot. And unless there was a 30-mile-an-hour wind behind you, you would never shoot the ball over the basket and miss by 3 feet long. And that was part of a series of bricks that I saw where layups were missed. They're hitting the bottom of the front rim, going straight up off the backboard there. I mean, shit that never happens in a game, even at the lowest level of park full court basketball, playground basketball, never happens. And that was in the elite championship game, the deciding game in the WNBA championship. So that was discouraging, that's for sure. If that's all you saw of the ball game, you would have seen why the league was also on the brink of extinction. That may be an exaggeration, but it wasn't overwhelmingly popular. They were still getting shitty crowds. They were losing $60 million in revenue, and they lost like $40 million this year, even with the infusion of interest and the overwhelming response that there was to. Was it just Caitlin Clark? I want to say yes to that. I know Angel Reese always gets mentioned, but let's face it, the most valuable player in all of sport last year was Caitlin Clark, and it's about to probably be Shohei Ohtani. How happy do you think they were at the networks that the Shohei Ohtani ended up in the World Series and you're on an East Coast, West Coast thing instead of a stinking Subway Series where there's rats crawling on the wall? So a lot of interesting stuff transpiring over the weekend, but we're happy, kind of a mixed bag. Like I said, the professor broke his slump. He'll be with us on Friday. Came out of it with a nice pick on Oklahoma State. They might have been able to pull that out, salvage that game on the money line. They were getting 9 points. They managed to be in the ball game until the very end, and then ended up losing by 3. So that was a cover. And most of our guys were on the side of Georgia, getting 5.5 in the college football ranks. Army and Navy, wow, that money in the bank. Army is burying bookmakers to the tune where, and I got on this late, as a lot of people did. The bookmakers still haven't caught up anywhere near to where Army is in terms of superiority. But they're so good against the point spread that I actually was tempted to enlist. I had to be reminded of my age that I was no longer eligible. But I mean, that's how good they've been. And in Navy, the same thing. They're shellacking opponents. I told my friend John Feinstein, who wrote a very eloquent and a compelling book about the Army Navy game and the tradition. I said, you really need to do a new book about Army and Navy and call it Army and Navy Declare War on Your Bookmaker. They're helping you bury a book, that's for sure. Will the line makers adjust? I don't know how many points you have to throw at these two schools to make them competitive with the point spread where you're actually sweating things out at the end of the game. A couple of games tonight in the NFL, Ravens and the Bucks. You have two home dogs. That was a burial point for bookmakers. The home dogs all going down as favorites were prevailing a couple of weeks ago in the NFL. Looked like kind of a mixed bag as it was in college football this weekend in terms of results. Ravens and the Bucks. The Ravens are laying 3.5 on the road. Competitive game, probably a tough call. And the Chargers and the Cardinals. Cardinals have been horrendous after showing potential a couple of years ago. I'd be inclined immediately to think that Harbaugh and company come up with a way to out on a limb and say that was accomplished with any certainty. We'll have our preliminary perusal for you tomorrow as we take a look at the card there. And Scotty M's going to join us here off another successful weekend on Bury Your Bookie. I hope you guys had a lot of success. Soccer and country music, a very unpopular opinion of mine, are two things that really should be abolished. Save the world, people. Save the world from itself. All right. We'll see you next time. We'll be joined tomorrow by Scotty M. Troy West, who's been red hot, another 2-1 performance on the program last week, will be joining us on Wednesday's edition of the program. We got Mike Jones, and he'll have some World Series opinions and bets for you coming up on Thursday. And then the professor joins us on the Friday edition of Bury Your Bookie. For the people at Bet Online, NoFilter.net, I'm Jeff DeForrest. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.